In this video, we'll take a look at cutting a nest of parts that has 5-axis cuts in it on a machine that's got two heads. One head would be a 5-axis head, and the second head is a fixed 2D head. It's a fairly common configuration that we offer. And of course, the challenge with this is ideally you'd like to do all of the 2D cuts with both heads and then come back with the 5-axis head and do the bevel cuts. And ultimately, we're going to be a little bit limited as far as how far over the 5-axis head can travel. In this example here, we're saying that our minimum head spacing is 20 inches, and machine here that's got 10 foot of travel in the x-axis. We can get a little bit more than 8 foot of travel with the 5-axis head. So in this example here, if we do want to be able to get full coverage with the 5-axis head on the sheet, the biggest sheet that we'll be able to handle is going to be approximately 8 foot across. Got a couple parts here that have some bevel cuts on them. Inside cut has a 2D cut and bevel cut. Outside on this one, you've got vertical cut, bevel cut on two edges. This one's got vertical cut around the outside as well as a bevel cut around the outside. So first thing you want to do is nest the parts. And we'll put them onto the sheet here. I've got my quantities set up, telling you that we're doing multiple tools, two heads, dynamic head spacing, and so on. That looks good for what we're doing. Stop and OK. Parts on the right in gray will be cut with head 2 simultaneously with these parts over here, and then these parts here in the middle are going to be cut with just head 1. If you want to double check that, you can of course use your order button and set your order on there. And we see you've got heads 1 and 2 cutting simultaneously, and then just head 1 and 1 and 2, 1 and 2. If you set tool optimization and then click on sort, then in this case here, it'll do head 1 for those pieces and then do all the dual head cutting. So whatever you want to do there, once you're happy with your layout, we'll just go ahead and delete that off right now. We're going to make two identical nests, and we'll make two CNC files. One will be the 2D cuts, and the other one will be the 5-axis cuts with the single head. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And we're going to take this and make a copy of it. Stick that down here. So we'll make this be our 2-axis cuts. So for that, we're going to delete the 5-axis cuts off of here. Use our delete command and click on that. And same thing on this one. And I could do the same thing on the other parts, or I can clone those toolpaths to the other parts. Go to toolpath, submenu clone, clone all toolpaths, select part, and then select parts. In this case here, it's only going to select the identical parts. And then you can do a similar thing on the circle. Toolpath submenu, clone, all toolpaths, and then drag a box, selects those. So now we've got our 2D nest. Go ahead and set your 0, point on that. And you can reorder that however you want that. And then on the 5-axis cuts that we want to do, we want to convert this to be a single head program. Go to your tools icon. Down here at the bottom, you have this explode option. Click on that, prompts you to select parts, drag a box around that sheet, left click enter, and now all these parts will be cut with head 1. So now in similar fashion to what we did on the parts down here, we're going to delete the 2D cuts off of these parts, leaving us with just the bevel cuts, and then we'll clone the bevel cuts to the other parts. So delete. We're left with the bevel cuts, toolpath, clone, all toolpaths, select parts, and then select parts. And same thing on this one down here, toolpath, clone, all toolpaths, select the part, select the parts. And now that we've got that, set our order, Drag a box around that sheet. All of these are being cut with just head 1, which is the bevel cuts. And then you can make your 2 CNC files. So one thing you want to be careful of is that you want to make sure that you do that nesting with the full tool pass on there, because when you do the nesting with the 5-axis bevel cuts on there, it's going to space your parts far enough apart to take into account the trajectory of that stream. If you were to nest the parts apart, putting your 5-axis bevel cuts on there, then it might get the parts too close, and then you could cut into parts that are next to the bevel cuts. So it's one thing to be careful of. And then another thing to consider is you want to make sure that you start both of these programs at the exact same location. You can either save a start point at the controller, or at the end of the first CNC file, you could have the machine rapid back to the start point. A couple ways of doing that. You can either do it with the order command. If I double click on my order line here, it'll bring this up. And if you want to do it in here, you can do this end rapid. And you can just put that on the corner of the sheet. Then left click and enter. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, let me just undo that, is under Process Submenu Strategy on the Various page here. There's this option to end with parking position, and you've got your standard 4 choices there. When you go to Process, first sheet, you'd want to check this end with parking position. And then at the end of the file, you'll see that it will come back to X0, Y0. Then for the second sheet, if you didn't want it to do that, because maybe you want the cutting head to move out of the way, so you could take that piece of material off the table now, you could on this one do the end rapid and have it rapid back here somewhere. And then in this case, you choose not to end with parking position. And at the end, it'll rapid back to that location. If you have any questions on any of that, let me know. Thanks.